We'll start out talking about serotonin in this video. It's one of the major neurotransmitters in the brain. Serotonin is found throughout the brain and also down in different parts of the body, such as the intestines and all along the digestive tract. Serotonin is a neurochemical responsible for mood, OCD, obsessive compulsive disorder, depression, elevated moods, anxiety, appetite, sleep, insomnia, sexual dysfunction, nausea, vomiting, GI cramps. It's a very major neurotransmitter that downregulates or slows down different parts of the brain when it's released. And as we can see in this particular slide, the green arrows going through the brain show that the serotonin begins in an area called the raphe nuclei, which are down in the brainstem and in the hindbrain, and then project pretty much throughout the entire cerebral cortex area. We're very interested in the fact that some of these paths are very corresponding to norepinephrine and dopamine paths. That means that when the dopamine, norepinephrine release and speed things up, we can also release serotonin to slow things down. So these things all work in kind of a common harmony or rhythm. We'll see that as we move forward. Serotonin works almost exactly like dopamine and norepinephrine, except serotonin slows things down. Dopamine and norepinephrine speed them up. But basically, we can see here that the neurons are in close proximity, forming a synapse between the transmitting neuron and the receiving. Serotonin is released from the transmitting neuron. It binds to the receptor molecules on the receiving neuron, and then there's reuptake back into the transmitter neuron for reactivation of the serotonin. Many people take serotonin reuptake inhibitors, and these particular drugs inhibit that reuptake and keep serotonin out there a little bit longer to do more work for the money, so to speak. Serotonin pathway going from the raphe nucleus into the frontal cortical area has to do with having a good mood or a bad mood. It affects the way we experience our mood. The pathway that goes to the basal ganglia has to do with repetitive behaviors, and we can also see that serotonin then begins to modulate those excitable activities of glutamate and norepinephrine. Another very interesting neurotransmitter is the endogenous or opioids that we produce inside our own brain. These are opioids that the brain produces, and the receptor molecules that they register in are the same ones that opioids that are abused when injected in or administered into the system then begin to assimilate and cause different things to happen. The mechanism of these are a little bit different than some of the other neurotransmitters. However, opioids are generally a downregulator of neurological activity, which is one of the reasons they work for pain. Not only are they in the brain, but also the spinal cord and nerves throughout the body. So they are basically associated with the way pain is registered and pleasure. We also have another neurological system, neurotransmitter system of the endocannabinoids. These are the ones that delta-9 tetrahydrocannabinol, the active ingredient in marijuana, activates. They correspond to the anandamide receptors in the brain. A lot of these are located in the hippocampal area and other areas throughout the brain. So we can see that marijuana, or when the endocannabinoid system is naturally affected, it slows parts of the brain down. On a brain chemistry level, we can see that the THC receptors are activated by THC or a cannabinoid. They peripherally cause the release of dopamine. This is something I'll show you here in just a few on another slide. But we can see that as THC is activated, it slows down a particular neuron. It activates that neuron that it slows down is generally believed to be GABA, which is the inhibitory chemical in the brain, in the nucleus accumbens and the ventral tegmental area, causing more dopamine to be released. In areas such as the hippocampus, when the THC downregulates the nerve cells there, it actually it downregulates glutamate and activates GABA in the hippocampus, which slows the hippocampal activity down considerably. Here we see the acetylcholine system, another stimulant activating system in the brain, mostly associated with nicotine. It originates in the mammillary bodies underneath the thalamus and then projects to different areas, pretty much all the way through the brain. One of the major activation systems of the brain, and causes glutamate, works in conjunction with glutamate, causes glutamate to be activated and turns the brain on. Nicotine is one of the examples of drug on the street that is that affects acetylcholine system. And here we're returning back to the reward pathway, which goes from the ventral tegmental area over to the nucleus accumbens and projects into the prefrontal cortical area. We can see that this particular pathway is fueled by dopamine, and the point being that every single drug of abuse, everything we talked about and will talk about, opioids, hallucinogens, marijuana, alcohol, nicotine, even sugar, amphetamines, cocaine, all of these different drugs, all, no matter what else they do to the brain, and we'll see that in future presentation here, but no matter what else they do to the brain, they all activate dopamine. And this is what makes those particular drugs fall into the category of being addictive drugs. So it's the activation of the dopamine system in the reward pathway that sets up a learning of behavior and drug seeking as the follow through of that type of learning. And this is another example of how the ventral tegmental area and nucleus accumbens are related by different types of nerves. You can see the dopamine nerve going from the VTA to the nucleus accumbens, and then we can see different drugs having different kinds of effects on it. First of all, we have things like nicotine, which stimulate glutamate to release dopamine. So the glutamate stimulates the dopamine, which stimulates the nucleus accumbens. The opioids and alcohol suppress the chemical that slows down the ventral tegmental area. The GABA neurons there, they shut them down. And because of that, then the glutamate neurons are stronger and they activate dopamine, and it activates the nucleus accumbens. Amphetamines, different types of stimulants, act directly on the synapse that goes from the VTA to the nucleus accumbens, and they activate the nucleus accumbens that way. Other drugs out there, alcohol, PCP, opioids, have a direct effect on the GABA neurons and the glutamate neurons in the nucleus accumbens. Cannabinoids also. So all of these drugs interact in the nucleus accumbens through dopamine. In this particular slide, we can see how the same brain circuits are activated by natural rewards and artificial rewards. The problem with artificial rewards is they go way outside of what we call normal limits. As we go outside of normal limits, we start to change the way the brain is. We change the cell, and that is what happens in the process of addiction. We call this change in brain structure neuroplasticity. The famous neuroscientist Hebb's remarked, neurons that fire together wire together. And this has become sort of the mantra of this new area of neurological research. What we find is that as we have more activity in a part of the brain, the cells actually activate through second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth messengers, genetic transcripts that change the number of receptors, the kind of receptors, the strength of the signals that the nerve manifest. It also changes the sensitivity of the nerve so that more or maybe even less, depends upon the circumstances, of a particular stimuli can cause a faster reaction, or it can not have a reaction at all. Sometimes the genetic transcripts will send out free radicals that kill off dendrites in certain parts of the brain that connect one area to another because they don't want to talk to each other anymore. They want to stay with a certain type of stimuli. This all changes the function and the structure of the brain. And that's the main lesson here, is that as we start messing around with the chemistry of our brains and running these circuits that coordinate and orchestrate all of the different aspects of the human brain into consciousness and behavior, as we start screwing around with that, messing around with it, we change our brain. And oftentimes, and most often in the case of drug addiction, it's not for the better.